and welcome to this lunchtime SQE workshop with BARBRI. We're really pleased to be running this workshop on this listeners qualifying exam for you, and it's definitely been a popular topic, so we hope that you'll really enjoy this workshop and find it useful too. I'm going to hand over to Kaylee and Hugo from BARBRI in a moment, but first I'm just going to quickly run through a couple of house rules as we usually do at the beginning of our online events. So firstly, please do use the online question tool to post any questions that you might have, and we're going to be posing them to our speakers from BARBRI in the Q&A session for the last 15 minutes of this session, but feel free to ask your questions throughout and I'll collate them and ask them at the end. If you do experience any audio or visual problems, please also use this tool to report them to us and we'll do our best to try and fix them for you. Please note this workshop is being recorded and the recording of this session will be posted online, and you'll receive a link for this within 24 hours automatically by email. Also, just to let you know that our next event is taking place next week. It's a financial services masterclass with Clyde & Co, McFarland's and Reed Smith. If that sounds of interest, a link will be sent out in that follow-up email tomorrow so you can register for that masterclass too. Finally, there is an interactive element to this workshop and you're going to be asked to try your hand at some SQE1 multiple choice questions. Please do get involved, make sure you give it a go, and the team from BARBRI are here to support and guide you through this. So I'm now going to pass over to Kaylee, who's going to kick things off, and Hugo and I are going to disappear and we'll be back at the end.
Thanks, Bethany. So hi everybody. Great to see so many of you attending today. And I hope you enjoy what we've got in store for you. So as Bethany said, it's going to be myself and Hugo presenting to you today. I'm going to do the first part and then Hugo's going to come in about halfway through and talk you through some more details on sort of the BARBRI method and how you would study with us if you chose to go with BARBRI. So just as an introduction as to who I am, my name's Kaylee Humphreys, as you might be able to see on your screen. I'm a learning coach at BARBRI. So I'm somebody that would be allocated to students to help and support them through their studying journey on the SQE1 particularly, which is the main focus really on my part of today's session, but we will also talk a little bit about SQE2, which is the second part of the solicitors qualifying exam. Okay, so let's get sort of an introduction going then in terms of what we're going to cover today. So what is the SQE1? Well, we might not really know a lot of detail about it yet, so we're going to talk really what it is. We're going to talk about the multiple choice questions that are part of the SQE1, and that is essentially what makes up that assessment. So it's very different to the previous way of examining to become a solicitor. We're then going to move on and talk about what the BARBRI method is and how you will study with us, and that's something that Hugo will talk you through. And then, as Bethany said, at the end there's going to be some time for question and answers, and obviously we'll do our very best to help you and sort of inform you as much as we can with any questions that you have. Okay, so let's skip on then to the Solicitors Qualifying Exam Part 1. So you may already be aware that there are two parts to the SQE. You have the SQE1 and you have the SQE2. Now, the first part, which obviously is the hurdle really you have to get through before you can even think about SQE2, is all multiple choice questions. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that in detail shortly. But we've got a lot of multiple choice questions in your SQE1 exam, and then SQE2, which is the second part, that is more skills based, and that is more sort of testing your drafting and advocacy knowledge. But let's go back to the SQE1 and just sort of go through these bullet points on this slide here then. So it's a multiple choice test. So, that idea of choosing, you might have some facts for a question, and we're going to have a look at some shortly. You will then have a sort of a key question that relates to those facts, and then you will have to pick the single best answer from the options. Okay, so some of them could be quite similar, and they are quite tricky in part, but we will teach you and guide you on the course as to how to really approach the questions and how to get a bit of a strategy to get through those questions and be quite quick at then choosing the option you want to go with. In terms of what is tested in this multiple choice test, well, it's what the SRA call functioning legal knowledge. So you might also hear that referred to as FLK. So functioning legal knowledge. So it's the sort of thing that traditionally you might have come across on your LLB exam. So if in your LLB degree, so if you did a law degree, or if you you may have done it, you may be in it, and you may not need, you may not be doing it, and that's also fine. But it would be sort of the core subjects, and we're going to have a look at them in a second, that you would find perhaps in a law degree, plus then practice sort of subjects, so the law but in practice. And that would traditionally have been what you might have found on the LPC, which is the old way to qualify as a solicitor in England and Wales, the sort of the legacy course, which is, as we know now, sort of slowly feeding out. So it's a bit of a mix, this functioning legal knowledge, between sort of the traditional core law subjects and then law in practice. Now let's go back to the actual assessment, this multiple choice test. So it's essentially 2 lots of 180 questions, and this is over 2 days. So day 1, you'll have 180 questions, and then day 2, you'll have 180 questions. You do get a break in between, and we call the first day FLK1, and we call the second day FLK2. So it's quite intense. There are an awful lot of questions to get through. And in terms of time sort of in the exam, it's roughly around 10 hours in total. Okay, so let's have a little look, a little bit more detail then as to the actual subjects. I mentioned before, it's sort of a mix between those core legal modules and then the in-practice modules. So if you have a look through the slide here, we've got business law and practice, and that will include tax, however it relates to business, and then some dispute resolution. Then we'll be looking more at sort of the core subjects with contract and tort. If we have a look in the second column, again, land and trusts and criminal, very sort of core law. But then again, we have, a lot of the practice ones. So property practice, including taxation, wills, including taxation, some solicitors' accounts, which as solicitors we all need to understand how the accounts in a firm works. So you can see there's a real sort of spread of subjects here. And we'll talk later on in this presentation about how you would get through them and study them. And as you can see at the bottom of this slide, so ethics and professional conduct will pervade. And that's essentially, guys, because once you are studying to be a solicitor, and then any time after that in life, you are, guided by this ethical and professional conduct code, whether that is in your professional life or your personal life. So the exam is getting you ready for that, with ethics pervading throughout all of the subjects. So let's have a little bit more information on understanding the test before we actually have a little bit of a stab at some sample questions. So understanding the test then, the key features of it, it is closed book. So you're not allowed to take any notes in, you won't be allowed to take any textbooks in, anything like that. It's, it's very much in your mind, the memory of your study. And you are tested on the law as it stands 4 months before the exam. Now that's really for fairness, because as we know, the law changes on a daily basis. Things are going through Parliament, the courts are making decisions every day. So the law does have to change, obviously, daily. And it wouldn't be fair for them to test you on something that had happened the day before the exam, for example. So it will be the law as it stands for 4 months before the exam. In terms of the level that you will be required to answer the questions at, it's based at the competency required of the level of a newly qualified solicitor. So again, they're not going to be mean and expect you to have the knowledge of a 10-year qualified practicing solicitor, for example. It's sort of day one, newly qualified level. And it's still difficult. It's law, of course. It's going to be, it's going to be tricky in places, but they're not going to expect 5-10 year qualification level knowledge. Now, interestingly, with the SQE1 exam, authorities are largely irrelevant. And when we're talking about authorities, we mean where the law comes from. So, is it a certain section of a statute, or is it a certain case name? Now, previously, you would have had to have recalled all of that information. But under this multiple choice testing format, you're not going to need to know the sections of acts or all the case names that you may have needed to know previously. It's more about understanding the law, getting that knowledge and understanding how it would apply to a situation and applying it, which is almost more important really, because in practice, a client is not going to be interested in the name of a case. The client is going to be interested in how that case actually works for their scenario. What does it mean for them? So that's why the SRA have moved away really from that authority recall type of examination. Now, as I said before, there's quite a lot of questions each day. So it would be roughly 1 minute and 40 seconds per question. That's how long you have. And some of the questions are shorter, so you might buy a little bit of time back on that. And some of the questions are longer. But if you've managed to answer a few a little quicker than the 1 minute 40 seconds, it actually gives you a bit more time on the ones that are longer. Now, the pass mark does vary. So it's not something that we can say to you, the pass mark will be this, and this is the mark you need to hit. It does vary. So we've had sort of 57 and 58 on the different FLKs. We've had a more recent sort of 51, 52 on the FLKs. And this is what Kaplan and the SRA actually set the pass mark at once they've seen the results of the test. So each sit gets a different pass mark. However, we say to you, we would like you in our courses to aim for sort of mid-60s, around 65%, because if you're aiming for that, you're giving yourself a little bit of leeway, and that's what we sort of build you for and guide you to in your study with us. Okay, so that's the sort of the background to this new SQE exam that the SRA have brought in. Now what I want us to do is we're going to have a little look at some sample questions. Now the first sample question, we've got 6 in total. The first sample question, we're just going to have a go at it and read it through from top to bottom, and I will read it through with you. And then once we've read it through, I'm going to ask Bethany to help us out with the poll. Now, before we get into it, I need to reassure you guys that this is in no way pressurized. We're not even expecting you to get anything right here. That's not what these sort of examples are for. It's to give you a taster of what it would be like in the exam and some of the sample questions that you will get from us as you study and as you practice. So please do have a go at them. There's no pressure. We can't see what people are doing, whether it's right or wrong, and we don't mind. It doesn't matter to us. It's just a way to interact and have a little bit of a go at these questions. Now, I've chosen criminal law as a subject because some of the law areas can be a little bit dry, as we know, and criminal law tends to be a little bit more juicy, perhaps. So we've gone with criminal law. And when I said, don't worry if you don't get any of them right, just to let you know, I'm not a criminal lawyer. I didn't practice in criminal law. So actually, some of you may actually be stronger on these than I am. That's the way it works. So please, please don't worry. No pressure here. So we're going to have a go at sample question 1, and I'm going to read it through with you, and then I'll ask Bethany once we've done that to start sharing the poll. So sample question 1. A man is charged at the police station with murdering his wife, and the police remand the man in custody to appear at court. The question is, at which court will the man be produced? Is it A, at the Crown Court, as murder is an indictable only offence? Is it B, at the Magistrates' Court? C, the Magistrates' Court or the Crown Court, depending on whether the defendant elects trial in the Crown Court or the Magistrates' Court. D, the Crown Court, as murder carries a mandatory life sentence. Or E, the Magistrates' Court or the Crown Court, depending on whether the Magistrate Court accepts jurisdiction. So, have just a quick scan back over that, maybe 10 seconds or so. Okay, Beth, can I ask you to do the poll? And as you do the poll, I think the poll's now open, thank you. I will just read out those options again. So, which court will the man be produced? Is it A, the Crown Court, because murder is an indictable only offence? Is it B, the Magistrates' Court? Is it C, the Magistrates' Court or the Crown Court, depending on whether the defendant elects in the Crown Court or the Magistrates' Court? Is it D, the Crown Court, as murder carries a mandatory life sentence? Or E, the Magistrates' Court or the Crown Court, depending on whether the Magistrate Court accepts jurisdiction? Okay, so I'm going to give you another sort of 20 seconds or so, and then I'll ask Beth to close that poll down. So another 20 seconds. I can see some people giving it a whirl, which is great stuff. Well done. There's a couple of people not giving it a go. Give it a go, guys, if you can. Like I said, there's no stress, it's no panic on whether you get it right or wrong. It's not about that. It's about having a whirl. Okay, right, Bethany, can I ask you to close that poll up and then we'll have a see? Thank you so much. Right, okay, so we've actually got quite a nice spread of the of options here, which just goes to show, because many of you might not have even done criminal law yet, so we're not even expecting you to have this knowledge. So we've got about 44% in A, we've got about 10% B, 13% C, 15 D, and 19 E. So a real spread. So let's reveal the answer. Okay, let's have a look. The correct answer is B. Now, this is because all cases, no matter how serious, begin in the Magistrates' Court. Murder is an indictable only offence, that bit's correct, but the case will immediately be sent to Crown Court once it's been seen in the Magistrates' Court. All other answers are wrong because all offences do have to appear first in the Magistrates' Court, but if it's murder, it just goes then straight to the Crown. Okay, team. Good stuff, well done. Now, what I want us to try on the next question, you will see that the actual question line itself can give you a little bit of a hint as to what area of the law we're looking at. Now, I know I've already told you it's criminal, so that was a little bit of a guide from me, I guess. But this is sort of building up our strategy as to how you can answer the questions a little bit quicker, because obviously we know there is that time frame. So let's have a look. We've got sample question 2. If we actually go straight to the line where the question is, which begins with which of the following is the woman's best defence to a charge of murder? Well, hopefully you will know immediately before you even read the facts above that because we're dealing with murder, it must be criminal. So that is sort of the immediate way to take your brain to what topic area, because obviously there's a huge spread of topics. Then we can go into a woman's back into the facts. So a woman's husband has emotionally and physically abused her for their 10-year marriage. She doesn't have a recognisable medical condition. And then one evening, the woman's husband comes into the house and hits the woman in the face when he demands his dinner. He then turns on the television to watch the news. The woman goes to the kitchen, picks up a knife, returns to the room in which her husband is watching television and stabs and kills him. So hopefully not only are we thinking it's criminal, we're thinking obviously it's murder, and then we have to answer the question. So which would be the best defence? A, loss of control, B, diminished responsibility, C, self-defence, D, insanity, or E, the woman has no defence? Bethany, can I ask you to do the poll, please? And again, guys, don't worry if you don't know, because, you know, if you've not done it yet or it's been a while since you've done criminal, you know, we're not expecting you to know. So which of the following is the woman's best defence to a charge of murder? Loss of control, diminished responsibility, self-defence, insanity, or the woman has no defence? I'll give you about another 20-30 seconds to have a go at that one, guys. Got about 90% of you in the room have voted. If you haven't given it a go, give it a whirl, another sort of 10 seconds or so. We also say in that assessment, guys, if you don't know, you should always give it a go, because there's no negative marking. So if you're not sure, it's best to pick one. Okay, right, Bethany, if you could close that down for me, that would be great. So looking at our results then, we have about 45% going with A, loss of control. 20% of people in the room are going with diminished responsibility. 14% self-defense, a few with insanity, and then about 14% saying the woman has no defense. So the answer here is that loss of control is the woman's best defense. This is because loss of control is a partial defense to murder, so it'll reduce the crime from murder to manslaughter. The defense applies when, 1, the defendant has suffered a loss of control, it's been caused by a triggering event, such as a fear of violence, and 3, a hypothetical person of the defendant's age and sex might have reacted in the same way. Here, the woman can argue that she lost control having been physically abused for 10 years and her husband struck her. It is reasonable to fear serious violence under these circumstances, and a hypothetical woman who had been treated that way may have reacted in that same way. Now let's have a look at why the others were wrong. So B is incorrect because diminished responsibility requires the defendant to be suffering from a recognised medical condition, and that wasn't the case here. C is not the best choice because for self-defence, the woman needed to act reasonably at the time the offence was committed. Here, the woman was not in immediate danger when she stabbed her husband. He was watching television, so she can't use self-defence. And E is not the best answer because although loss of control is only a partial defence, it is still a defence, albeit it will just reduce from murder to manslaughter. So as you can see, guys, with our sample questions, these questions are actual questions from our course. So you will get the full explanations. If you get something right, you get the information as to why you've got it right. And if you don't get it right, you will understand the explanation as to why, you know, you've got it incorrect. So it's all about learning, even just in your books, but every question you do, you're learning, you know, as to why the rule is as it is. Right, good stuff. We're going to head then into sample question 3. I'm going to leave you to read through this one. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to read through it, and then I'm going to ask Bethany to open the poll. Okay, Bethany, can you open the poll for this one, please? So for this question, where there's the mechanic smashing into the woman's car, she's gone into a coma, and then 2 months later, the doctors announced that she's brain dead. What is the most serious offence for which the mechanic can be found guilty? Is it A, murder, B, voluntary manslaughter, C, involuntary manslaughter, D, wounding or causing grievous bodily harm with intent, or E, wounding or inflicting grievous bodily harm? So again, about 30 seconds, give it a go. Got about 85% of you who have voted, guys. If you haven't voted, give it a whirl. Remember that idea, it's not negative marked in that real exam, so pick one, because you might as well pick one and get a 1 in 5 chance of getting it right. There's no judgment from here at our end. We don't, it's just about giving it a go. Okay, let's close that down, Bethany, if we can. Thank you. So again, we've got a bit of a spread. The majority of people have gone with C, which is the involuntary manslaughter, but we do have a little bit of a spread across the others as well. So if you went with something else, don't worry. The answer actually is C. So the mechanic can be found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. This incorporates unlawful act manslaughter, which arises when a person kills another while committing a criminal offence that carries an objective risk to the victim. The requirements are that 1, the act was unlawful, it was deliberate, it carried the risk of some harm, and caused the death of the victim. Drag racing on city streets is unlawful, and one should know that such action is likely to cause injury or death. So that would mean that A is incorrect because murder requires an intent to cause death or grievous bodily harm, and there's no suggestion here that there was that intention. It was also not a virtually certain consequence of the Mechanics Act either. B is incorrect because voluntary manslaughter is a partial defence to murder, where the defendant has the actus reus and the mens rea of murder, so the act and the intention, but where the defendant lost self-control or suffered from diminished responsibility. This isn't the case here. D and E are incorrect because the woman actually died. So English law considers brain death to be death for the purposes of murder. The fact that the woman died after 2 months is entirely irrelevant. So again, you can see the level of detail we give you, and you can always go back into your study materials to sort of refresh then once you've got the answer to something if you haven't quite got it. Guys, you're doing really well. Keep with me. We've got 3 more examples. I'm going to move a little bit quicker through these ones. I'm going to leave you to read through. So again, try and read that first line. See if you can guess sort of the area. I know it's criminal, but maybe the specific area as well, and get into the facts. So sample question 4 then. I'm going to be quiet for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to ask Beth to share the poll. Okay, Bethany, can you share the poll for us, please? Thank you so much. So in this situation, you're asked, is the clerk liable for prosecution for selling the girl alcohol? She's come into the shop. He asked for the license to check her age. She reached in. As the clerk reached under the counter to get the bag, she's grabbed the wine and thrown £10 on the counter and run off. She's actually 16, and you're told it's a strict liability offence. So is he liable for prosecution? No, because the clerk asked for the driving licence. That was A. B, no, because the clerk did not know that the girl was underage. C, no, because the clerk did not sell the girl the wine. And then D, no, because the clerk was only a salaried employee rather than the owner. And E, yes, because the clerk cannot raise any defence as this is a strict liability crime. So give it a whirl. Another 20 seconds or so, guys. Got about 80% of you giving it a go. Give it a whirl. Pick at random if not sure. Okay, let's release the results there. Thanks, Beth. So we've got sort of a spread against all 5, but the main one that people are coming up with is C, which is the correct answer here. As this offence is one of strict liability, the clerk's best defence is that he did not sell the girl the wine. She threw the money at him and ran out. A is not a valid defence because under a strict liability statute, it's illegal to sell to a minor, even if she presented false identification. So thus, if the clerk had actually made a sale to the girl, he would have violated that statute. Even if he had asked for that licence, that wouldn't have mattered. It's strict liability. B's wrong because under strict liability statute, it's illegal to sell a minor, even if the defendant did not know that the purchaser was a minor. You've got that B would only be a defence if the statute required knowledge of the age. D ignores the fact the seller of the alcohol is not the guilty party. And E is incorrect. There are defences to strict liability crimes, specifically here, negating the facts required for the crime. That is, if there was no sale, there was no crime. So C is our best option here. He didn't sell the girl the wine. Okay, 2 more to go, guys. Again, that one was a bit of a longer one, so you can see how they can vary. We've done a bit of a mix here. This one's not as long again. So sample question 5. The leading bit of the question, will the car owner likely be found guilty of theft? So we know it's criminal and we know it's theft. Head into the facts, see what you think. 30 seconds or so before we open the poll. Okay, let's open that poll, please. Bethany, thank you. So we've got a car owner asked a mechanic to change the tyres. They agreed the price was to be paid when it was picked up. The mechanic changed the tyres, telephoned the owner. Not wanting to pay for the tyres, the car owner told his friend that it was ready, but he couldn't get it. He explained that they'd already been paid for, gave his friend the key, and the friend went to pick it up. Will the car owner likely be found guilty of theft? A, no, because it was the car owner's own car. B, yes, because the car owner had promised to pay the mechanic for his work when he came to get the car. C, no, because the car owner only really stole the tyres. D, yes, because the friend took the car without the mechanic's permission. And E, no, because the friend took the car and not the owner. So have a go. This one's a little bit of a tricky one. Give it a whirl, guys. I've got about 70% of you giving it a go. Give it a stab. Just pick one. Don't worry about it being correct. Another 10 seconds or so. Okay, guys, let's close that down. And the answer here, which some of you did get this one, some of you were in the yes category, but not quite the reason for yes. So most of us were in the yes category, but some of us were really, the majority of us went for B. It's D here. So the car owner would likely be found guilty of the theft. And it's because of the makeup of the theft offence. It's the appropriation of property belonging to another with the intention to deprive the person of it permanently. It is possible to steal your own property if someone, for example, a mechanic, has a superior right to possession of it at that time. Let's just focus on B here for explanation. B is wrong because even if the car owner had not made a promise to pay for the tyres, he incurred the obligation by having the work done. Okay, last one, and again, I'm just going to let you read through it. I'm conscious that Hugo's got quite a bit to get through as well with you, so we'll speed up on this last one. Have a quick read. Say we'll try and get through it, say 30 seconds, and then we will pick and release the answer. Okay, let's start the poll, and I will read through the question again just as you're choosing. So we've got a youth attacking a passerby in the street with a knife, intending to cause the harm. Security guard sees the attack, tries to help. Unfortunately, the security guard causes the passerby to fall. Injuries. The injury is then worsened. Passerby is taken to hospital, refuses a blood transfusion due to religious purposes. Condition worsens further, and unfortunately, after a week, the passerby dies. Is the youth guilty of murder? So we had a no, because the security guard intervened and worsened. No, because it was the refusal of the blood transfusion that was the issue. C, no, because the passerby would not have died if life support had not been removed. D, no, because the youth did not intend to kill but only cause harm. Or E, yes, because all of the elements of murder are made out. So we're going with quick fire on this, 10 more seconds. I know it's not quite as much, you'd be given much more time, but I think we've got a flavour. So 10 seconds. Okay, let's release that answer, and the answer, and most of you did get this one, is E, that all elements of the murder were made out. So murder requires the defendant to cause the death of a human being with intent to kill, or GBH. The youth intended the GBH, and there was no breaking chain of the causation. So I'm going to give you a little moment just to read through those other options out of interest. Okay, team. So thank you so much for really giving that a whirl. I know I can see the majority of you really did sort of humour me there and give it a go. So well done. I hope it gave you a little bit of a flavour of what it would be like with the questions. I'm actually now going to move sort of hand the reins over to my colleague Hugo, who will be able to sort of start talking to you about why choosing BARBRI for your preparation. So I'm going to stop my webcam and take off my audio for now, and I'll hand you over to Hugo. Thank you.
Hi, so as Kaylee said, what I'm going to be going through with you now is how BARBRI helps you prepare for the SQE exams. So if we could go to the next slide. So these are the key features of our SQE1 preparation course. What you get when you enroll in our course is a personal study plan. So if you went to university, kind of think about it as like your online portal, your VLE that you had at uni. So this is where you have everything like lectures, pre-recorded lectures, etc. So on this PSP, you'll be able to have access to our intuitive study assistant and coach, which is Isaac. So basically what it is really this technology that helps track your movement on the course. It will basically tell you how many hours you've studied in the week, if you're behind, or if you're ahead or on track in terms of studying for your intended exam date. You also have access to a one-to-one personal learning coach. And what that is basically this person will most likely be a qualified solicitor themselves. And what they will do is check in with you to see how you're doing on the course, if you need any extra support in terms of maybe have exam questions or course questions as well. They'll be basically with you throughout the whole entire course duration as well. So our lectures are given by top tutors in their field, and these lectures are around like 20 to 30 minutes long as well, so they won't bore you to death. They're not like uni lectures, which are like 2 hours long. What you have as well is a selection of a large bank of multiple choice questions on your personal study planner. So as Kelly did discuss, the SQE1 exam is a multiple choice question exam. And what you'll have is a large bank of 2,000 questions where you can basically get familiar with the exam process, as well as testing your knowledge as well of what you've just learned as well. What we also give you is hard copy materials. So for SQE1, you get 2 textbooks and a revision guide. We're not going to give you like 18 or 20 textbooks. You'll get the precise knowledge that you need to know for the exam. We also have Prep for Success workshops, and these are led by our tutors as well. And they'll essentially just give you the best tips going into the exam, as well as just preparing, how to stay calm, things like that. And recently, something that we've introduced is our Credly Bad accreditation. So essentially, when you finish the course, you'll get a badge just saying that you've completed the course as well. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So what we're looking at now is basically our pass rates for our SQE1 and SQE2 alumni cohort. So for SQE1, 76, we have a percentage of 76%, and that's basically the pass rate of 76% of students that sat the SQE1 with us, and that is compared to a 51% industry average as well. And for SQE2, our percentage of pass rates is actually much higher. It's 83%. So 83% of people passed with us compared to the 71% industry average as well. And we also have a percentage criteria at the bottom where it shows that 89% of our students were satisfied with the number of interactive workshops we provided, as well as 93% of people gave us a 93% average lecture rating, and we also have 86% in terms of students satisfied with the length of the course as well. And we do have a lot of flexible course durations, which adds to that number as well. So if we could go to the next slide. So essentially, this is how our SQE1 course looks like. As soon as you log in, you'll see the date, which will be whatever date you log into, obviously. You'll also be able to see how many days there are until your exam. So that will actually help you effectively customize how each day is going to look like until the exam as well. You'll also be able to see how many hours of study you've done today or in the week as well. You'll also be able to see the work you've completed as well. And we will put an inspirational quote there as well to help you keep going as well. Also, Kaylee did mention that demonstrated how the multiple choice question works when you do it through the PSP. And basically you'll pick a correct answer and it'll show you why the reason's right and why all the other answers are wrong as well. And what we do have is interactive kind of like, we have animations where instead of a normal lecture where you just have someone speaking at you, we actually do provide animations as well, just to make it a bit more interesting. As well as that, what you can do as well is as you're practicing with questions and whatever topic, you're able to track your progress amongst other people who are doing the course. So it will basically put you in a percentile of how great you're doing compared to everyone else. So essentially, if you do feel like you're falling behind in terms of your percentile behind everyone else, it kind of shows you what you need to work on. So if we can go to the next slide. So this is how our textbooks looks like. And as I said, you do get 2 textbooks for SQE1 and a revision guide. So obviously you'll have a breakdown of the module that you're reading, especially with the separation of powers as well, which you can see there. And it'll basically explain what each branch of government is as well, as you can see on there. Basically in, I would say, short, concise, understandable terms to understand, so it really sticks in your mind as well. So if we could go to the next slide. And this is just another example, but on business law and practice. And everything is explained on here, from limited liability partnerships. And again, you're really seeing that probably compared to most textbooks, this is very like short and concise, but you don't need to have any panic in that because it's the relevant information that you need to know for the exam. It's not going to fill your mind with a bunch of random legal jargon that you don't need to know. This is just precisely what you need to know for the exam. And you'll provide with examples as well. So this is how to join with BARBRI. So so we have courses that will get you ready for the exam as soon as basically January next year. So what we do have on our SQE1 course is a 40-week course, a 20-week course, and a 10-week course. Our next course starts October 2nd, and that is our 40-week flexible course. And with that, you'll be studying for 10 to 12 hours a week in order to prepare for the exam. And with that, we have a criteria of basically which course duration we recommend to people. So the 40-week course, this would be best for people who didn't graduate with an LLB. So let's say they did an English degree, this would be the perfect course duration for them, as well as anyone that is in full-time employment, so you can only really do the course part-time, as well as foreign qualified lawyers. So with foreign qualified lawyers, if you come from a country that is a civil law jurisdiction, then the 40-week course would be a good course duration for you, so you can basically slowly get yourself acquainted with English law. And so we have our 20-week course, which we call our focused course. And we have one that actually just started in August that we're still enrolling for. And with this course duration, you would have to dedicate 20 hours of studying a week. And this is really best for anyone who graduated doing an LLB from a UK university, or graduated, I would say, within the last 3 years, I would say. But we do find that people do tend who work full-time do tend to do this course as well. They just have to try and manage how much extra time they can put in to do this course. And then we have our 10-week course, which is our accelerated course, which we actually recommend to a limited amount of people because of how intensive it is. So the 10-week course, you need to dedicate 40 hours a week of studying. So essentially that's a full-time course, and that is best for someone that's just come fresh out of an LLB. So all of that LLB core modules like criminal, tort is still fresh in your mind. And yeah, so that's who we would be recommending the 10-week course to, sorry. And with all of these study hours as well, you can pick the hours. So you do 10 to 12 hours, but however you want to split it up to is completely up to you as well. Go to the next slide. So this is our SQE2 course, and our SQE2 course is different from our SQE1 course in the sense that, so for SQE1 we have a 40-week course, a 20-week course, and a 10-week course. For our SQE2 course, we only really have a 20-week course option. Sometimes we do have a 10-week course option, but for the SQE2 exam, that's in January, you can start preparation basically now. And what you can do is do 10 to 12 hours a week of studying for the SQE2 exam. And this is best for candidates who have sat and passed the SQE1 or done the QLTS, MCT, or LPC graduates who are basically exempt from the SQE1 exam. And we do have basically another course option for the April exam, which again is same for the best for the same criteria of people as well, but we just have different start dates. So August is for the January 2024 SQE2 exam, and then November start date for the April 2024 SQE2 exam. And they're both 10 to 12 hours a week. And again, you can split that up however you'd like. So if you could go to the next slide. So our SQE1 prep course costs £2,999. We do have installment options available. We do have scholarships available as well. What you can do as well is, if you have a phone with you right now, you can use the camera, scan the barcode, and that will basically take you to our website and show you more information about the SQE course as well. So if we just go to the next slide. So here is all of our socials. We have our website, which is barbri.com/SQE. We have a Facebook page, an Instagram page, LinkedIn, and a Twitter page as well. So you can take that down if you want to have a look at those. And I think that's it.
Hello, I'm just going to ask Kaylee if she could just come back. Great, thank you so much, both of you. That was super interesting, and I actually really enjoyed those multiple choice questions as well. I thought they were great fun. We've got a few questions. Many of them have actually already been answered, which is great. But Hugo, I'm just going to stick with you because I've got a few sort of course questions. So is the course online or a campus setting?
Yeah, so that's probably something I should have mentioned. It is 100% online. So you access the course through your PSP. You just need like a good stable Wi-Fi connection and you're good to go. But it is 100% online.
And how much of the course will be independent study?
So a lot of it is independent study because of the fact that the way that our course is set out, it really tracks your own, basically your own study and your own, basically centered around you and what you're doing in terms of study, reading, things like that. But what we do have is we do give details in terms of like you creating your own WhatsApp chats with other people who are on the course. So if you are in the same city, you can basically meet up with them in the library to study for the SQE exam as well. And there is a lot of interaction with other students that you get from our workshops as well. So whenever we have our success workshops to do with exams, you do meet other people on the course as well. So it won't be a situation where you're just like staring at a screen for 9 months completely by yourself.
Great, thank you. A couple of people have asked this question, so I just wanted to clarify. The price that you just had before, that is a price for the course and does not include the price of actually taking the assessment. That's correct, isn't it?
That's a good question. Also, what I should mention is that, okay, this is our SQE1 price, our SQE2 course price. If you do the course SQE2 course by itself as a standalone, that costs £3,499. But if you've come from us from doing the SQE1 course, you get the SQE2 course for £2,999. So £2,999. I hope that makes sense. That's why I'd explain that. Also, yes, it doesn't include the exam fee. The exam fee is completely separate. I think currently as it stands, the SQE1 exam costs around 1,700 and something pounds starting from October.
1,798.
Yeah, and then the SQE2 exam will cost around £2,700, £700 starting from, yeah, starting from October this year. So yeah, and that has to be paid directly to the SRA when you register for the exam.
Great, thank you for clarifying. Right, just a couple more about the course, and then Kaylee, there's a couple more about the assessment. So I'll come back to you just for the last couple of minutes. Hugo, you did cover this, I think. Do you provide printed learning material?
Yes, so we do provide textbooks. You get 2 textbooks for SQE1 and a revision guide that will be shipped directly to your enrollment address as well. You'll also be able to view these online on your online bookshelf.
Also, is it possible to switch between courses? Somebody has said they're not sure, like could they start for the part-time and then switch over to the full-time, or sort of the different number of weeks, or do you have to commit from the beginning which sort of length of time you're doing?
So it is completely possible to switch courses, but you have a deadline to do it. So say let's use an example of you're doing the 20-week course that starts, okay, I'm going to use a really recent example. So we have a 20-week course that started at the end of last month. If you find that you're wanting to switch to the 40-week course because you feel like you can't do 20 hours a week of studying, you need something lower, you can switch to the 40-week course as long as you do it before the 40-week course deadline. So the 40-week course would begin around October and the deadline would be around sometime in November. So just as long as you would switch from the 20-week course to the 40-week course before November, you should be good to switch. I hope that makes sense. I've just jumped through a whole lot of timelines.
It does, thank you. And just to say, we're going to put a link in the follow-up email, which will have loads more information. So if you have any particular questions that haven't been answered or you're not quite sure, do check out that link because that will give you all the information you need. And I believe you can also speak to someone from BARBRI about your course options too. Kaylee, just for the last minute, a couple of questions for you about the pass mark. Does the varying pass mark mean that a certain percentage of examinees always fail in each given cohort?
I mean, excuse me, the pass mark, as I mentioned, is set by its externally. It's not anything that BARBRI have control over. So it's more, I think, they will look at each sitting and how people have done. And if in that sitting, for example, it looks like it might have been a harder sit, it might have been harder questions and people haven't necessarily performed as much as high as they wanted, they might reduce the pass mark, which is what they've done this time. However, if more people have done well, in that situation, they are going to probably increase the pass mark. So it's a way for them to control, I guess, the amount of people that qualify each time as a solicitor, as qualify each time on the SQE1 to pass that. So it is a little bit arbitrary, and it's not something that we have much insight into, but that's why we say aim to get in the 60s, and we've not seen any pass marks up in that domain from the SRA yet. So if we aim for the 60s and above, then we're doing well, we're good.
Yeah, and a few people have just commented on sort of the most recent SQE pass rates being a bit lower than expected. But I think we also covered in this sort of that the BARBRI sort of pass rate is above that industry average. So doing a prep course is definitely one of the best ways to make sure.
Yeah, consistently it is, and we're still waiting on our results coming through. I think Hugo have the overall picture of our results, and we have to rely on our students to give us those, because there's no way to actually cross-reference data with the SRA. However, what we can absolutely see at the moment is we're being very consistent with our previous cohorts and performing very, very well against the national average.
Great, perfect. So we are only 2 minutes overrun, which I think it was good thinking about how much we managed to pack in today's session. So thank you so much to Kaylee and Hugo for that workshop and for answering the questions at the end too. Before everybody goes, just a reminder that we will be sending out an email with the link to the recording of this workshop. That's going to be with you within the next 24 hours. Please don't chase us, because it will be coming out automatically tomorrow. But if you do have any further questions or require any further information about the SQE, first of all, there's Law Careers Net's SQE Hub, where we put together lots of resources and advice for you. But any questions about BARBRI's prep course, that will be on their website, and some links will be sent out in that follow-up email for you. And finally, a survey will be popping up once this session has ended, so please do fill that in. Let us know how you enjoyed today and your thoughts. So thank you again to Kaylee and Hugo and everybody at BARBRI, and we look forward to seeing you all again next time.